this episode, we start with zero trust, a security idea that can sound strict at first, but becomes much easier once you understand what problem it is trying to solve. Zero trust does not mean you accuse every user of doing something wrong, and it does not mean nobody can ever access anything. It means access should not be granted just because someone is on a familiar network, using a known device, or has already signed in once. Modern environments are too spread out for that kind of automatic trust. You may have users working from home, applications running in the cloud, data moving between services, and devices connecting from many locations. Zero trust gives you a way to think about that world more safely. Instead of assuming a request is safe, the system keeps checking whether access still makes sense. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at Cyber.News in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The phrase "never trust, always verify" is the heart of the zero trust mindset. It does not mean trust is impossible. It means trust should be earned through evidence and limited to the situation. If you sign in with the correct password, that is useful evidence, but it may not be enough by itself. If your device is healthy, that is another useful signal. If your request comes from a normal location, at a normal time, for an application you normally use, that may lower concern. If the request suddenly comes from an unusual place, from a risky device, or asks for sensitive data you rarely touch, the system may need more proof or may block the request. Zero trust is about checking context instead of handing out broad trust once and forgetting about it. Older security thinking often leaned heavily on the idea of a trusted internal network and an untrusted outside world. That picture was easier to use when most employees worked in one building and most important systems were inside one company network. Today, that boundary is much less dependable. A person inside the network can still click a phishing link. A company laptop can still be infected. A cloud application can still be misconfigured. A stolen account can still look like a normal user at first glance. Zero trust starts from the reality that location alone does not prove safety. Being inside does not automatically mean safe, and being outside does not automatically mean hostile. The better question is whether this specific request should be allowed right now, under these specific conditions. Assuming breach is another major part of zero trust. This does not mean you assume everything has already failed and give up. It means you design security with the expectation that something may already be wrong somewhere. An account may be compromised. A device may be infected. A cloud setting may be too open. A user may have more access than needed. When you assume breach, you stop building security as if every attacker will stay outside the first wall. You build it so that if an attacker gets through one layer, they still face limits, checks, and visibility. This mindset supports segmentation, least privilege, monitoring, and strong identity controls. It helps you reduce damage when prevention does not work perfectly, which is exactly the kind of practical thinking security Plus wants you to develop. Identity is one of the first places zero trust shows up. Before a system grants access, it needs to know who or what is asking. That can be a person, a device, an application, or an automated service. A username and password may be part of that proof, but they are not always enough. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, adds another layer by requiring more than one kind of evidence. A system may also look at whether the account is behaving normally, whether the request is risky, and whether the user is asking for something that fits the role. Zero trust treats identity as a living access decision, not a one-time doorway. You prove who you are, but the system still limits what you can do and watches for signs that something has changed. Device posture is another piece of the access decision. Device posture means the condition or security health of the device trying to connect. A system may care whether the device is managed by the organization, whether it has current updates, whether protection is running, whether it is encrypted, or whether it has signs of compromise. This matters because even a legitimate user can become risky when using an unsafe device. If your account is valid but your device is infected, the request may still create danger. Zero trust does not look only at the user and ignore the machine. It asks whether the user, device, application, and situation all support a reasonable access decision. That gives security more context than a password alone ever could. Least privilege fits naturally with zero trust because access should be limited to what is needed. If you only need to read a file, you should not also be able to delete it. If an application only needs to reach one database, it should not reach every database. If a support account only needs temporary administrative access, that access should not remain active forever. Zero trust does not just ask whether you can enter. It asks what you should be allowed to do after entry. This is where many security problems grow. An attacker may begin with one compromised account, then use extra permissions to reach more data or systems. Least privilege reduces that path. It narrows the blast radius so one bad event does not automatically become a much larger one. Application access also changes under a zero-trust approach. Instead of giving someone broad network access and then hoping they only use the right systems, zero trust focuses more directly on the application or resource being requested. You might be allowed to reach one business application, but not another. You might be allowed to view information, but not export it. You might be allowed normal access from a managed device, but challenged when using an unknown device. This is a more precise way to handle access. It avoids the idea that once you are connected, you are broadly trusted. The goal is to make each access decision closer to the actual thing being protected. That can reduce unnecessary exposure and make it harder for an attacker to move from one resource to another. Segmentation supports zero trust by dividing the environment into smaller, controlled areas. Without segmentation, a compromise in one place may open paths to many other systems. With segmentation, access between areas is limited and checked. A guest network should not reach administrative systems. A public-facing application should not have unnecessary access to sensitive internal data. A regular user workstation should not freely connect to every server. You can think of this as reducing open hallways inside the environment. If something goes wrong in one room, the entire building does not automatically become available. Segmentation is especially useful when you assume breach, because it accepts that an attacker may get into one place and tries to stop that attacker from moving everywhere else. Continuous monitoring is what keeps zero trust from becoming a one-time checklist. Access can look safe at the beginning and become risky later. An account may sign in normally, then start downloading unusual amounts of data. A device may pass a health check, then show signs of malware. A user may access one expected application, then try to reach sensitive systems that do not match the role. Monitoring helps detect these changes. Logs, alerts, behavior patterns, and review processes all support the idea that trust should be watched over time. This does not mean every action is suspicious. It means important activity should leave evidence, and risky patterns should be noticed. Zero trust depends on visibility because you cannot verify what you cannot see. Zero trust is also closely tied to policy. A policy is a rule or decision that says what should be allowed, denied, challenged, recorded, or reviewed. For zero trust to work, access decisions need to be based on clear rules instead of guesswork. A policy might require MFA for sensitive applications. Another might block access from unmanaged devices. Another might allow normal users to view data, but require extra approval to change it. These rules should reflect the sensitivity of the resource and the risk of the request. You do not want every situation treated the same way. Reading public information is not the same as changing payroll data. Checking a schedule is not the same as approving a financial transfer. Zero trust works best when policies match real levels of risk. You may hear zero trust described as a product, but that can be misleading. Zero trust is not one tool you buy and then finish. It is a security model, a design approach, and a way of making access decisions. Tools can help enforce it, but the idea is bigger than any product. You need identity controls, device checks, access policies, segmentation, monitoring, logging, and review. You also need people to understand why access may be limited or challenged. If users see extra checks as random annoyance, they may try to work around them. If the organization explains the purpose and designs the process well, zero trust can improve security without making normal work impossible. The goal is not friction for its own sake. The goal is safer access. Another misunderstanding is that zero trust means every request must be blocked until proven completely safe. Complete safety is not realistic. Security decisions are usually about managing risk, not finding absolute certainty. A system gathers signals, compares them to policy, and decides whether to allow, deny, challenge, or limit the request. Some requests are low risk and may be allowed with normal controls. Some are higher risk and may require stronger proof. Some should be blocked because the situation does not make sense. This flexible approach is one reason zero trust fits modern environments. It does not rely on one big boundary. It uses many smaller decisions that reflect identity, device health, application sensitivity, behavior, and context. That gives you a better way to handle access in a world where everything is connected. The conclusion is that zero trust is a practical answer to a modern security problem. You cannot safely trust a request just because it appears to come from a familiar place. You need to verify identity, check device posture, limit access with least privilege, control application access, use segmentation, and monitor activity over time. Assuming breach helps you design security that still has limits and evidence when something goes wrong. Never trust, always verify is not about paranoia. It is about making access decisions based on proof, context, and risk. As you study Security Plus, keep connecting zero trust back to questions you can actually use. Who is asking for access? What device are they using? What are they trying to reach? How much access do they need? What evidence will show whether the activity is normal? Those questions are the beginning of strong zero trust thinking.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.